Wynter Tai chats Tong Bei with Sifu Rosa Mei. Let's go. Welcome back to Wynter Tai chats, and before we get into anything, please don't hesitate to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, and help the channel out. So, for today's chat, we have the distinct pleasure of speaking with a master of Tong Bei. She has the honor of being the first female disciple within that style. She is a former member of the US Wushu team, a gold and silver medalist in Wushu, and she also has a black belt in Aikido. With over 30 years experience in the martial world, she shares her vast knowledge through her academy, Bionic Kung Fu, where she teaches traditional Tong Bei Chuan through the lens of function to form. Please welcome Sifu Rosa Mei. How are you doing?
Great.
I'm glad to have you on to the podcast, and I'm very, very thankful that you agreed to come on. So without further ado, since we do have that time difference between us, let's get straight into the interview, Sifu. May I ask, how did you get started in the martial arts?
Well, actually, I guess my first interaction in martial arts is very similar to what, like most people, like I was in high school and there was a karate club, and then there was this really big dude teaching, and he would have us do crunches, and then he'd step on everybody's stomach, but I was so small, and then he'd skip me. And I was like, and then in the school yearbook they have a hi-ya, and I'm in the karate club, which I don't remember anything about that. But honestly, I think I really started seriously when I was in dance school in Michigan in the 90s, and I was always like really hyper flexible, and so I was doing a lot of ballet and modern, and I felt like I was turning into a stiff rubber band because there was a lot of gram technique. And so I was like, well, I really need to do something that'll just like keep me released and relaxed. And so I thought about yoga, but I would always fall asleep during yoga classes. And so I looked into a dojo, and I was like, oh, well, that's really interesting. So I started Aikido. And it was at this dojo called AMAS, Asian Martial Arts Studio in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they did a lot of different styles. They did Shorin-ryu, Goju Karate, and they also did Tai Chi. They did Aikido. They did Judo. Many styles under Sifu Carl Scott, and he was really like a great instructor. And what was really great, apart from the styles, was that the guys that trained there were the dojo rats. And so, I mean, I was in dance school and I was training about 10 hours a day. But the dojo rats they would train 6 hours a day. They would just live at the dojo, so it was really, and you don't see that much. I mean, regardless of what people are training or whatever, unless you go into Eastern European countries where maybe they're selecting people for professional teams, or in China where they're training professional, wushu athletes or something like that. But you don't have people training, 6 to 8 hours a day, just martial arts. So I really like that about the dojo. And so Aikido was my first intro into that. And then in an Aikido party, I ended up meeting a guy who, the guy's name is Arno Klein, and he was a protege of Burt Richardson and Danny Inosanto. And then he was like, oh, and then he used his thumb and he showed how he could slice my liver into like 13 pieces. And I was like, that is just so interesting. and he became my first sparring partner. So we would just get together and I would just wail on him with a rubber stick. Like just he'd say, "Oh, find an opening. Find an opening." And he moved like a tune. Like he was so gangly and so quick in his responses because he did Shorinji Kempo, he did Kali, he did Hapkido, he did Taekwondo sparring competitions. So it really was different from the Aikido, which was, very, very sensitive, very release oriented. And then on the flip side, like when I wasn't doing, ballet, I was like, trying to look for openings with a stick.
Okay. So,
And
so the martial arts started with Aikido, and then you went into what was that? Kali, you said?
Kali Salat Arnis. And
Kali.
then and then my ballet teachers complained because I was doing so much Kali that my forearms got really big and they said that I looked like Popeye and they told me to stop. And so I actually continued with the Aikido. I didn't do so much Kali training. And then when I moved to New York in the early 90s, I had already done like 3 years of Aikido, and I was like, I feel really bad. I don't really know how to punch. And I really love forms. So there was a school that opened up close to Union Square on 18th Street, and it was Lama Kung Fu under Chan Tai San. And he was so crazy. Like he would light fireworks inside the loft in outside of Union Square because he was trying to scare away all the ghosts. So I look from across the street and you see this man and there's all this fumes coming out of the windows and he's going dun 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 because there can't be ghosts when you're training. So that's when I started with Lama, and then after 3 years of Lama, which was it's a southern long short style, very similar to Choi Lei Fut. But I really felt like for my body, I would be better suited for Northern style. And my Lama teacher at that point started training me in modern wushu because he said, "You'd be really good at this." And then I loved it. And I then followed that through. And then I ended up being on the US wushu team. So there was that. That's part of my martial arts journey. After I was doing the modern wushu, then I found Master Suyu Chang, who taught in musical theater works in New York City, and he had something called Bachi Tang Lang Quan, which was Bachi and Mantis, and he also taught Bagua, Xingyi, Qigong, Tai Chi, and that's where my traditional Mantis journey started, and I did that for like 10 years.
Wow. Wow. To be honest,
And then after all of that,
that
after 20 years of martial arts, I started the Tong Bei, which is where I am now. And now I've been doing Tong Bei, I've been doing Tong Bei since 2008. So, oh gosh, it's almost been 20 years now. Yes, but at that point, Tong Bei really changed my martial arts trajectory because Tong Bei, which actually translates as through the back, gave me a new way of thinking of martial arts, not as something that was forms oriented, but very, very functional, where all your basics would feed into a fighting style.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So Tongbei actually means through the back. That's awesome. I'm not too versed with Tongbei, but when I see Tongbei movements, right, these very large arm movements, right? To me, from my martial experience, to me it looks a lot like Chole Fat, or Chole Fat looks a lot like Tongbei in
Yeah,
certain.
you have the swinging arms. You do have like what? Because I did Lama, and you have because you think about what was Lama. Because I remember one of my training brothers who became an animator for Warner Brothers, and he would describe like animation, and he'd be like, "Yes, it's like an ape fighting a snake and a crane." So you have the ape movements, you have the swinging arm movements in there. But the tombe is a little bit different than other like monkey styles such as like piqua that's also based on the movement of monkey gibbon. which I also trained in, but it's very different. It's very different.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So, this is like a very good segue into our second question, Sifu Mei, right? Which is, what is Tong Bei Chuan? You did say what Tong Bei means, which is through the back. But, could you give us a little bit more elaboration on what it actually is?
Yes, like it's actually Tongbei used to be a really closed door system. And in Beijing, they don't proliferate it. Like they don't teach to outside people who have not trained for 10 years in another martial arts styles. They don't even need to bother. But I also think it's because when you start with traditional Tongbei in Beijing, they will tell you, yeah, go do 10,000 arm swings a day or 2,000 arm swings a day. 2,000 arm swings a day, forward and backwards. Well, that takes 3 hours. 3 hours where all you're doing is swinging your arms. I did that for 2 years, and I don't teach my students to do that. Like I sort of, if someone says you need to do X to get to this point, I'm going to do it. So I did all the repetitions that they said you need to do to get there. I feel like you know Tong Bei really it teaches you a lot about body mechanics in a functional way. And let me back up a little bit. The styles of Tong Bei that I do, because there are different branches of Tong Bei, just like there are different styles of Mantis. You have 7-star, you have 8-step, 6 harmony, Southern style, Northern style. Tong Bei is predominantly Northern style. The two styles that I train in specifically are Wuxing and Baiyuan Tongbei. My teacher, who's Zhang Xingbing, amazing, amazing, brilliant martial artist. Like he's 71 years old now, and he's still teaching. And every year, he becomes more and more powerful. The difference in Tongbei training to say because I know you do Tai Chi, because I did Tai Chi for a long time in Taiwan, and there you always talk about Ting Li, which is listening energy. So you're thinking, okay, well, I need to have an unbroken circle, and you want this continuous flow and this breathing, and you really want to think about Peng Li Ji An and sort of this cartilage energy and sensitivity. You're thinking about the sensitivity. Tongmei doesn't care about that. Like, it really doesn't give a shit. I don't mean that. It's like if you took a martial arts, and what I always tell my students is like the analogy is you're turning your body into a ball and chain. Think if you want to train and you're going to become the Tasmanian devil, or you want to basically turn yourself into basically a whip chain, or you're going to make your body into a rope dart. So I'm always thinking heavy hands, and grounding. So you have a lot of that spiraling energy from the body. The two styles that I train in, Baiyuan and Wuxing, are very, very different. Those were the two styles that were the specialties of my teacher, Zhang Xingbin. So when he's a teenager, he started with Baiyuan Tongbei, which translates into white gibbon style. And they were linked to Zhang Guizhang was his teacher. And he was part of Nujie, which is Ox Street in Beijing. And so if you think about like the 20s when they were actually hanging out on this one, infamous street, there were lots of other practitioners there. So you would have a lot of Shuaijiao guys. They would do Tuobu, which is it's like an uprooting step. So you see a lot of like the monkey stepping in the Baiyuan. And the Baiyuan has more forms, and you see like there's certain basics. You have the long swinging arms. The Wuxing, which is 5 elements Tongbei, comes from a different lineage, Zhangci and Zhangze. And then Dong Shusen came after that. And then my teacher's teacher, Zhang Fusha, who is in Beijing now, we call him the godfather of Tongbei. He focuses on Wuxing, which in fact has almost no forms. Like there's one form that almost nobody practices. It's really a lot of basics, a lot of arm swings. Sometimes you're striking on targets. The Baiyuan, you tend to work more like hitting, like the dog, what you call it's like a column that they wrap with pelt, and then they create like a body mechanics from that. That's where you have a lot of the pai swi, like you'll have the iron palm training, but then they translate into long arms, and so you're really like using the whole body to do that. The difference is that the wuxing has a lot of really refined elements that I've never seen in other martial arts styles. I mean, maybe other people talk about it. I've never seen it before. And they do a lot of kai he, which is like open and closing of what? The ribs, you know? There's use of elbow energy, a way that when you are, breathing, you're not just working on your dantian, you're also working on your miman. So it's a lot of that. And you have this explosive energy where you're training not just your elastic energy, but your recoil. So in every one move, there's two moves. So for example, actually you can hear this. A lot of the times, this was really interesting. When I started the Tong Bei, I'd had 20 years of martial arts training before. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go to Tong Bei, I'm going to go to Beijing, and I'm going to do more martial arts. And they would all stand outside in the park in the dark. And I'm like, why? There's a street light right there. Why the hell are they standing in the dark? And then Sanglas was like, I don't need to see you. I hear you. Because he would hear this. So they would know, he would listen to you, and he knows exactly what you're doing. And this was the thing. They also start the Fajing from day one. Like they'll be, it's very, very strong. Like I started in Lama, which, when I would go to competitions, they would do the fajing, which is the vocalization. As the animal sound, they'd be like, hey, ha, ha, which I never felt comfortable. I always thought that was so stupid. And I was like, I don't want to make noise. I don't have to make noise. And it seemed very superficial. But in Tong Bei, we call it heng ha ji. The heng ha is like vertical energy or horizontal energy. And it's the exhalation of the breath combined with the opening, closing of the ribs, and also sinking into the ground simultaneously with the strike. And so when you're doing that, it's really, really powerful. Like a lot of times when I'm teaching my students, for example, I say, just stop it. Stop doing everything. Do this. Yada da da, yada da da, yada da. Just say that. And then now do it. And then I said, now do it again. Fix it, and they can, because the vocalization doesn't lie. It actually is a reflection of what you're doing with your internal energy. And they train that really from the day one, which I love it. And I think it's really, really important. It is why Tong Bei to me is like the Thelonious Monk of martial arts, because it has this real like jazz flavor to it. It's so unorthodox. Plus, almost all the combos are syncopated. Everything's in a 3-5-7, or there's yada da 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 da. Like it'll be so fast. And then I'd say to my students, how many strikes is that? And then they'd be like, 5. I was like, ooh, 5, yes, good.
Okay. Okay. So, Sifu Mei, I have a question regarding the Baiyuan and the Wuxing. Are the emphasis different between the two styles?
Yes, because the Baiyuan has more forms, and it's much more structured. It has a little bit more similarities to like Shaolin Kung Fu. So you'll see certain things like 7 hands, but The thing is that Zhang Laozi in his evolution, because he was Zhang Guizheng, he was very, very famous Tong Bei master in Beijing before he ever started wuxing Tong Bei, which he started, I guess, really like in 2012. He really changed over to the wuxing, which is the 5 elements. And when he started that, his martial arts just deepened. Like every year we see him, and it's just so scary powerful. It's like being hit by like a cannonball. It's just like, oh my God, And sometimes I just like, because he just like throws people. It's very scary and extremely powerful. Like if you see like they always talk about like Chuanso, which is a circular fist, which is not a haymaker, but or something that we call zhongquan, which they call the overhead in boxing. So you see these techniques that MMA fighters are using, or they say KR1, who I'm afraid he does like there's one MMA fighter that uses Trenso really well, but it's like a primitive version of Tong Bei Chuan, and it still works, even if you have the baby Tong Bei. You don't have to have like Siya's power. You're not going to have Siya's power anyway. But even a little bit of it added to whatever martial arts styles amplifies it a lot. And so when Zhang Laozi took every, not just form that I did, but also he looked at all my weapons. And so he Tongbeified all my weapons training. And so I also did that because his background's not in Kali. My background was in Filipino stick fighting. So I took that and I Tongbeified the Kali, which was very much like sometimes in the Filipino stick fighting is very forearm oriented. Same thing like Wing Chun, also very forearm oriented. Also Mantis, very forearm oriented. And I made it much, much more like a longer movement, but through the back. I think the biggest thing, a student even asks this about me. He asked me this week. It's like, oh, but if you're doing these big open movements, aren't you just leaving yourself exposed? And I was like, that's how long I left myself exposed. Did you see it? It's like by the time you have like the axing fist and the retraction, it's like a rope dart hit you. What are you going to do? So that was like it's a little bit of a a brain teaser almost, like it seems like it wouldn't work, but it actually does.
Very good, very good, very good. So here's the big question for you then, Sifu.
Yes.
Is Tong Bei practical for self-defense?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's very practical. You actually see lots and lots of like MMA fighters using small elements of it, because a lot of what the Tong Bei does is like Baiyuans who don't. What you'll have is like where you have like a covering this way here, boom. You'll have 5 strikes. You don't, and I say, look at me, and I teach my students. I was like, you see my face, you see my center, and they're like, no. And then what they see is my fist. They see this and they go high, low, low, high, low, high. It's very, very strategic because the way that it links the moves is unanticipated. Like I think the one thing I feel like if boxers started like training in Tong Bei, it would like explode. Like it would completely change the martial arts trajectory because the difference is that in boxing you tend to think of combos, jab, cross, hook, and so it's a chain of combos. The thing about Tong Bei is it's very similar if you think of like Floretti's. Floretti's, you have like an infinite circle. In Tong Bei, you have the infinite circle, so you have the infinity circle that's creating high, low through a curve. But then you also are adding the recoil, the down, up, down, up. That you have like in an axing strike, which I really feel is very misinterpreted in many, many styles. Example, in karate or in aikido, you have something called shomanuchi, which is basically, it's the strike that's like to your forehead from overhead. But basically, what I call it's the beer bottle strike at the bar. Like you want to crack the guy's head. That's so violent sounding. But it was basically the same thing. And I was like, why is it taught like this? Or In Mantis, they call it windmill arms, and then they would do this, and I was like, it'd be like 1, 2, 3, and I was like, that just looks ridiculous. Like it was, I don't understand the point at all until I saw it in the Tong Bei where, oh, they're actually taking this pizan, this axing fist. It's not like hitting the guy's head with the bottle. You're not hitting that. No, you're actually it's a dunk down. You're donking the person's arm down, and the recoil cuffs them on the chin or whatever is there on the way up. So it's really, really practical because you're using the whole body to do that, And I think, okay, this is the thing. It's often compared to other styles like Baji and Pigua. Oftentimes are very much compared to the Tong Bei. I trained both of those with Master Su for like over 10 years. I would say that the difference is like Baji has a lot of the same like mechanics of the explosive power, but it's much more short energy, and it doesn't have the same training methodology where you're really thinking about the coiled energy and the kaihel, which is opening and closing of the ribs, and how are you using your front and back energy, lai hui jin. The forward and back at the same time. And as you're going back, you're actually using the elbow to close the ribs. I mean, this is really interesting stuff, When I did the Pigua, we had the swinging arms, but the Pigua arms tend to be like, it's long arm power that works externally, and it's not rooted to the ground. So it almost looks like you're flailing, and I think people do that in Fang Zichuan as well. Like people tend to do Fang Zichuan in competition, and they go, "Oh, isn't that Tong Bei?" It's like, isn't that the slapping form? Like, why are you slapping yourself? And I must address this question. Why do you slap yourself? Like if you have a P, this is the sound. So the sound is actually 3. The 3, it's not, okay, the first is actually you're striking a center target when you're training. The second, you're hitting the shoulder, and then the third is actually you're hitting your thigh because it's down. Your energy is sunken. Or when you're going hit, you're hitting your thigh because it's an oppositional energy to the strike up. So this idea of the strike being generated through oppositional energy, you're not doing patty cake. Which is, I feel, is a real bastardization of these sort of slapping styles that you see in Pigua, Fang Zichuan, Tong Bei Chuan. It's like where you see them hitting their bodies, It must be done in a practical way where you're thinking, this is being done, this sound is being generated before the strike. In fact, the sound happens because you're striking your body and then you're shooting your arm out. It's not simultaneous, and it's not superfluous. It's not ornamental. It should never be ornamental. Wow, I talked so much. I'm sorry. You can stop me anytime.
It's welcome, Sifu Mei. It is. Now, what's funny? I actually interviewed another Sifu Mei, and he was a teacher of Baji and Pigua.
Oh, I know Vincent. He's a good friend of mine. Yes.
Yes, definitely.
And we are not brother and sister. We're not related. He has 2 kids too. He has a boy and a girl, and we were both in New York, and we are not related. No.
Don't worry, I wasn't going to ask, but let the record be straight. All right.
No,
so,
he's a dear friend. Mm-hmm.
I remember in that interview, he had literally described Baji as being trying to violently occupy an opponent's space. Is that similar in Tong Bei? Are you trying to?
Yeah, well, that is Kao Jin. Kao Jin is when you're actually what I call Kao Jin, because that is very much a central tenet. I mean, it's one of the concepts that you have in many, many martial arts styles. It's the idea that you're displacing and uprooting your opponent. So when I explain couching, I go, yeah, it's the tank. It's the tank technique or hip check if you're thinking about hockey. basically you're hip checking the guy and you're getting them out of your way, you know. So that's that. It's one of many concepts in martial arts, yes. And we
Awesome.
do have that in Tong Bei, of course.
Oh, that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So yes, we through everything. It is very effective for fighting. Definitely is. And
Yes.
for self-defense. So let's go ahead and go straight into our next question, right? What do you think, honestly, is the hardest part of developing Kung Fu?
I think right now the hardest part is that people don't really want to do something that's going to take so much time. Like, you know, if you want to train your basics and whatever, you know, people are very focused on external and they want to get physically fit. They want to train for body beautiful or to be, you know, healthier, you know, but everybody's really busy with their ordinary lives and their real, you know, their jobs, raising their kids, whatever, whatever. And so I know because I remember one of the apps that I made it with my wushu teacher, Li Laosi, Li Jianlong, who was on the Chinese national wushu team. And he also taught the Tai Chi team in Fujian. And I made it. This is okay. I made it as a joke because I go, you know, there's an app called 7 Minutes where people just train for 7 minutes because that's all they want to do is train for 7 minutes. So why don't we do that with Tai Chi movements? And we were just laughing about it. And to this day, that's my most successful app. Like people, and when I do it, I actually go, "Hey, this is pretty good. It's pretty good. Like if you only want to do 7 minutes, and you know, 7 minutes is better than nothing." And what I feel like now, it's a gateway. It's like anyone, like when people are trying to train adults to play guitar, you know, because normally you think, oh, you have to start a musical instrument when you're a child. For adults, this is a general rule. They say train for 5 minutes a day. Because once you pick up that instrument, then that's when the exploration begins, and you'll be like, "Huh, well, this chord is I don't remember this riff. I better rehearse this more." And then 5 minutes turns into 30 minutes, and hopefully turns into hours. You know, but it has to start from there. You know, it has to be like, what is it that makes it fun for people? So that they become obsessed with it in the same way that people, you know, become obsessed with music or dance or whatever, you know, or art, anything that's not quote unquote practical, you know. Why you want to become an ultra marathon runner? Like a marathon's not good enough. You have to like do 100 kilometers instead of like 26 miles. Not enough. You need more. You know, it has to start from you know, from somewhere.
Mhm. So it's just really find that one little seed. Find that
Yeah,
one.
and I feel like okay, like I do train some kids now, and the pattern that I see is this: like people are really addicted to their phones now. I mean, kids, you know, from age they're one, they're using their phones, and a lot of that screen addiction, people's attention span is very, very, very short now. And so we used to think like, oh, if someone doesn't train every day, well, then they're not really serious about it. I mean, now people are training once a week, and that's that, you know. And it's really, you know, I always say that what I loved about martial arts is what you get out of it is what you put into it, you know. It's directly proportional. And so I realize, like, especially like when I teach younger people, kids in particular, who's maybe sometimes don't have as long an attention span, they'll be like, yeah, I know it, and then they want to show me immediately, I know it. And knowing it means that they got the combination, but it's not in their body. They can't repeat it without thinking about it, and it's not really part of them. And I said to them, it has to become part of you. Until it becomes part of you, it's like, you know, looking at your sheet music. And who wants to play music like that, you know? It's like,
That is a great answer there. Very good answer, Sifu made. Thank you very much. That is very cerebral. I mean, honestly, truly, you have to find something that's going to make you want to continue training. It's true.
Yes, exactly. No, and I always try, like when I find students that are really, really dedicated, I try to pick something for them that they will love. Like there was one student, he's my teaching assistant, and he was with me for like 5 years, and I go, you know what? Why don't I teach you rope dart? You know, it was just out of nowhere before summer vacation. It was just like I just threw him a bone because you can take this on a plane. You know, you put a Donkey Kong dog toy at the end, and you can travel with it. And he just loved it. And he just drilled the hell out of it. He started studying YouTube videos, and then he was teaching seminars by the end of the summer. You know, it was like really, really great. And it was like something that he just became obsessed with, you know, and that's what you always hope for, is that something that you do will create a spark, and that will ignite a fire.
We're going to isolate that last comment right there. Find a spark so it can light a fire.
That's so cliche, right? Like, light the
It's
fire,
true.
light the fire. But you
That,
do.
that
I
is
mean, it
true,
is true. But
but it
it's
does
it,
sound very nice.
yeah. I mean, it's like you have some embers and you want them. They're glowing, and so you better stick another log on before your fire dies out. You know, it's just like, how do you keep it going? And I think this is the one thing too. For I mean, I know you're a lifelong martial artist, as am I. Like, there's just no question we're going to be there. Come hell or high water, it's snowing outside. Let's go train. You know, there's no question. But a lot of people I see after they hit, 10 years, 20 years martial arts, then they just plateau and then they just become the gatekeeper, or they drink tea and start criticizing other styles. And I was like, where's the evolution? Because I feel like no matter where you are in your martial arts or your arts journey or whatever journey you're on, there are so many levels beyond what we can accomplish in this lifetime. It's just like it should be infinite. And if the style that you're studying is not giving you that, then maybe you should re-examine it. Like for me, what I wanted to teach other martial arts, and I said, this is not about your style. You can do whatever style. Like I have a student in Munich who does Wuzhu Chuan. And after he had trained with me a year, I was like, well, now you know some Tong Bei. Go back to your Wuzhu Chuan and do it on a target. Go find a punching bag and do every form. Don't show me your Wuzhu Chuan. Show me on the target, and show me exactly how you're going to map it. Because what I would do is then I started teaching students, and this was really different. Even weapons forms, I would teach them from hitting trees. And then I'd be like, okay, so now I taught you the whole form on 3 trees. So show me the form. And then they're like, oh, show me what it's supposed to look like. I was like, no, I'm not going to. No, come on, what is it supposed to look like? No, I'm not going to. And then they would show me. And, some parts of it did not look exactly like the traditional form. And other parts, it was really better. Like better, they knew how to use their hips and they understood target. And I feel this is really key. If people in martial arts, and specifically traditional martial arts, all those guys who are ragging on the modernists who are just doing flowery jumps and moves that looks like figure skating. Well, figure skating is hard, by the way. But you know, are they actually practicing on a target? Really? Like, show me the form. Show me bong bu on a tree. Go ahead, show me. Show it to me on the other side. Can they? And a lot of the remapping shows how bastardized many of the forms have become over the years because it's become so detached from the actual use that it's become useless. And that's why when people go to spar, you have sanda competitions, and then you have like the Chinese martial arts, the forms, and then sanda, and it's taolu sanda completely separated. And I really have issue with that. I think it's completely wrong. And I will just say, I think it's really bullshit. Like, if you're going to teach a whole style and it has nothing to do with fighting, then we have failed. We've completely failed as traditional martial artists. If this is all we have, then people should better. People can go out skating, go skateboard, go swimming, go do something where you get a proprioceptive feedback loop that gives you something genuine that your body's going to react to, you know? Because skateboard, there's no lying. What you're going to lie about, oh, you can do a kick flip. Can you do an ollie? You know, there's no BS in that. You either can or you can't. We don't even need to talk about it, you know? And I feel like a lot of that has to come into martial arts now if it's going to go into the next generation.
Yeah, man, put your money where your mouth is.
That's yes, exactly. Or let's just not talk anymore. Let's just all go train. You know, it's like,
With being in martial arts world as long as we have, what's the word that describes it all? Politics.
yes, and the keyboard warriors, I really need I try to stay as detached as possible from all that. I think it's not a productive use of anyone's time, and I feel like life is short and we would all be better off researching and evolving and developing.
Okay, so Sifu Mei, speaking of productivity with time and stuff like that, I must ask, how has your training in the martial arts influenced your life?
Oh, it's everything. Like, I think when I first started martial arts, I just did it because I thought it was beautiful. I did Aikido because I saw someone perform it, and I was struck. I was like, wow, it's so released and it's so circular. And then I really like throwing people too. It's like I really love like choking someone out. Like there's the physicality of it. And then there's the raw beauty of it too. Like I remember when I first signed up for Lama Kung Fu at Shantai San School, and they had a little index card, and you were supposed to write like, "Why are you training martial arts?" And then they're like, "For fitness, for to lose weight or whatever." And then there was an empty box, and I was like, because the forms are beautiful. And I just thought it was true because the Chinese forms were just exquisitely beautiful. Like I thought it was so cool that by the time you had like looked at this guy's sword, and they're doing this Floretti thing, they've cut your head off. I was like, isn't that just fascinating? Like that's just awesome. And there is that infinite fascination. Like it's like, why does a musician love you know training jazz? It's just like, for me, when someone asked me about swords, I was like, yeah, because there's nothing more fun in the whole universe, because it's just so it's spectacular, because it's not just aesthetic. For me, I think my evolution as a martial artist over the years, when I first started in martial arts, it was much more aesthetic, and it was a lot about how you use your body, to use the momentum, how you generate momentum with the body, the aesthetic appeal of it. And then over the years, my evolution has been much more like 100% towards function. If it's not function, let rip out everything that's superfluous. Let's just delete all of it. Like if there's two ways to do this move, let's pick the most practical way, and let's evolve that.
I tend to agree. I agree 100% with you. And I think that is really the evolution that a martial artist actually takes, right? When they learn form, however they learn it in first, but mostly it's they learn form, but they don't learn much function to that form. They just learn, okay, that's the form and stuff like that. But then as they evolve through time, they come to realize that there is function behind that form that they learned. So just like how I had said about you in the intro, right? It's more, the evolution is now looking more at the function versus just the form.
Yes. Oh, well, I got into an argument with another Mantis teacher, because we were both teaching Sansai Jian, which is three treasures sword, traditional sword set. It's often taught in Mantis curriculums. And normally, the way that it's taught is you teach the whole form, which contains both sides, and then later on, you pair it up with the partner. When we learned it, we never trained on a target. I'm telling you, we never train on a target. And then he's like, oh yes, but then after the students learn it, then after a year or so, then they can figure out what they're doing with it. And I'm like, why should we do this? Why do we need to train this way? Why can't they just, in Kali Salat, when I train Kali, we just go and we start hitting things, and that is their technique. And I was like, we just losing something. Why can't they learn it? Because, sometimes I would see even like grandmasters from China teaching Miao Dao, which is grain leaf saber. I'd be some really famous master from China. And I could look at the positions. I'm like, the students were trying so hard in this workshop to make exactly the right position. And I'm like, why don't they hit a target? Like, why are they so obsessed with holding this awkward ass position? They just hit a target and they'll know, oh, this works, this doesn't work. It's not rocket science, and if we can't get past that, then we have nothing, absolutely nothing. If you are just there to pose, then all you're doing is you've lost any sense of what you're doing on the other side. What is the other person doing? Because this is the thing. Martial arts is never a form. It is action, reaction, action, reaction. It is attack, parry, parry, attack, parry. So every move you should be able to see in a form. And I'll mark forms for my students if I'm not doing it on a target, which I try to start from there, but sometimes they get confused. I'll be like, what's this? Is this move an attack or a parry? And then they look and they'll be like, attack, parry. And then they're like, that could be either. I was like, yes. And they know. They have to know.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Right. So, rightfully so, you had actually answered the question in the first sentence after asking me. I said, it's everything in my life. When I had asked, how has martial training influenced it? And literally, it is everything in your life. That is awesome. That is awesome.
I remember when I lived in New York and I was first starting, to do martial arts. And then I learned spear, and I just loved spear. That one became my favorite weapon because I cycled through every weapon, which I thought, oh, this is my favorite weapon. This is my favorite weapon now. So then I would be doing la na za, which is it's the jabbing move. But then my spear had one of those. It had one of those metal balls, so it made sounds, so you could hear it. And then I would try. And this is a New York City apartment in Manhattan, and my boyfriend was like, "What are you doing? It's 4 a.m. Stop it! Stop it!" And so then I go to the wall. He'd go, "I hear you. I hear you. I still hear you." I'd be like, "Oh, damn it! I gotta take that ball out."
I think as all martial artists who are hearing you tell that story, we can relate to it oh so much, you know. Well, I mean, also it depends on which part where you're actually from, right? Because I guess in New York the walls are paper thin, I guess, right? But over here, like where I am in Florida, well, at least the walls are a little bit thicker. So,
Yeah, you don't have neighbors complaining about you sounding like you're an elephant walking on the floor.
no, I think we still complain about that. Yeah, I think. But anyway, let's go back into the interview here, Sifu Mei.
Okay.
This next question, I believe, is the most cerebral of all the questions.
Okay.
Because it's just literally one thing. So let's
Mhm.
go. If you could teach the new generation of martial artists only one thing, it could be technique, it could be principle, but only one, what would it be?
What are they doing on the other side?
Meaning?
Meaning, if you are doing any movement in martial arts, what is happening on the other side? Like, we're so obsessed in martial arts with just like thinking what we are doing, whether it's striking a bag or if we're doing a form, what the next move is. Golo taikwa. This sequence of moves. So you learn a sequence of moves. Well, so does every dancer or figure skater or whatever. But what is the purpose of it? If you can't think strategically, then we've lost everything. You have to know what is the response on the other side. I mean, I could say use of momentum, use of torque, center line strategy. Yes, but I think you have to know what is the person doing on the other side. And without that, then you don't know what you're doing. And I remember when I was first learning Mantis, because my partner then, he was teaching me Xiao Hu Yan, and then there was a strike combination there, and he was so good because he grew up street fighting in New York City, and he was so clever. And because I wasn't a street fighter by nature, my background was in dance. I didn't think like that. I thought aesthetically. And I think many martial artists think aesthetically. But especially forms practitioners. You're either thinking aesthetically, or you're thinking of like Fight Club or boxing or whatever, or you're thinking of combos. But if the people started thinking of what's going on the other side, or is this an action or reaction, or what is this triggering, then it would really, really change everything. It's not this hypothetical, scenario anymore. I think like the forms have to evolve into something functional, and that's where I would really like to see martial arts head. And it's not just like Chinese styles; it's all styles, because I feel like there's a real dichotomy in martial arts, and then what you see is like fighters, and then they'll say, oh, we're doing the real shit. No, we're doing the real shit. What you're doing is just like dance, which I'm insulted because I'm a dancer too, so please don't say that. But it's like dance is hard. Try figure skating too. Really, go ahead, show me your triple left. There are mechanics behind it. There's definitely that, but I feel like martial arts has to evolve into something much more functional. Because I feel like many, and this is true for many martial artists that I see in the traditional world, it's become this thing where people are hyper correcting their students. It's become this thing of like, oh, no, no, that's not it. That's not, it's more here. No, hold this stance here. No, this is it. Hold Tang Chuang longer. And I think that really it creates really impediments. Instead of moving like animals, people become statues. And if you want to train, people to be 灵活, which is like active, lively, you really want to move like a monkey, you better not be standing there practice, micro, managing this stance. That would be a waste of time. It would be like, how would you change martial arts and make it like surfing? It's like because the surfer deals with water. The response is the wave. The response of a surfer is how are you reacting to the situations which are in flux constantly. So this is something that's always, and they're training their reaction. And that's just the thing. You better be training your reaction.
Well, I do have to say, I agree with your response to that question, Sifu Mei. Asking what is what if you could teach the new generation one thing and one thing only, what is on the other side? Quite honestly, I think of two things when I think that. I think of chess, one, and I think of Sun Tzu's Art of War. Right? Why? Because in the
Yes.
art of war, it is if you go into battle knowing yourself only, you will lose. But if you
Yes.
go into battle knowing yourself and your enemy, you are assured victory. So that does make sense. That must make sense, and I agree with that answer. And I actually love that answer 100%. Know what is on the other side. Whether it be a two-man forum or whether it be a meeting in the corporate world, just know what's happening on the other side so you can get a full picture of the situation. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
I think people are too much involved in their own worlds now, and it's just like martial arts has become this solitary affair. And if you don't know, for example, a lot of people will say, "Okay, I do get this question a lot." It's like, "Well, I'm training by myself all the time, so I don't have a partner to train with, so that's why I can't evolve." And for me, I feel like, well, there are many ways to train without a partner that you can create proprioceptive feedback loops. Are you working on a target? Are you hitting targets? Are you feeling like this is working on hitting a target better? Are you using elastic bands in your training? Are you getting, the slingshot effect? Are you using like loop bands in your training to engage your core? I mean, many, many, many things. And then, yes, you must work with a partner. It's just like, it's not like it's this abstract thing, because I know like so many times it'd be like, oh, we're going to do forms, 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 and then later on let's do quote unquote partner sets, and it shouldn't. I feel like in certain ways, like certain styles like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or Aikido too, like people will say, oh, that's the least practical martial arts, but at least they're touching each other all the time, and as much as people like shit talk other styles, there are great practitioners in every style that surpass anyone, who's training once a week, and being a keyboard warrior. So I like to stay out of the politics and just shut up and train everybody.
If everybody could subscribe to that philosophy, there would be a lot less arguments in the martial world, right?
Yes.
And we could actually start getting into the real meaning of the saying "Mo Lam Yat Ga," one martial family, one world, right? So let's
Yes.
last question, and it usually is the toughest question, Sifu Mei. How can you be contacted?
Oh, that's easy. You can find me in a lot of things. You can find me on TikTok, Bionic Kung Fu, Instagram, Bionic Kung Fu. You can find me on YouTube, Bionic Kung Fu. You can also just look under Rosa Mei. I teach classes online. I have private students, and I teach classes regularly in Prague. If people are in Prague. And also, they can also reach me through my apps too. I did a lot of apps: 7 Minute G, meditation moves, Tai Chi Temple, Gymnast Fit. So there are many ways. I'm easy to
Awesome.
find. You can ask Chat GPT. How do I find Rosa, the martial artist that has the same name as a Pokemon character? Okay.
All right, ChatGPT can definitely get all your handles there, but no problem. We'll make it even easier for the listeners, for our viewers. Contact information for Sifu Rosa Mei will be in the description down below. Also, in the description down below will be a link for Feiyue shoes. If you need a pair of Feiyue shoes, go ahead and click the link down below. Get the best prices, get the best deals, all at feiyueshoes.com. Sifu Rosa Mei, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
the
so
time.
much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
As once again, like I have been saying earlier, it is my pleasure to have you on, as you have taught me so much about Tong Bei, and you've
Oh,
also told me about your journey through the martial arts. And trust me, it has been fun. It has been real.
okay. And come to Europe anytime. Visit. Come train with us
Sure.
in the forest.
I love all those training videos. It makes me feel like speaking about forest makes me think of Robin Hood. That kind of scenery right there.
I always have them hit tree. Well, in a forest, it's really great because if you're in a gym, you don't have, people hang a bag and then they're hitting a single bag. But in a forest, it's like you're fighting a whole terracotta army.
Ah, I like
Yes.
that. I like that concept. That's a great concept. Well, Sifu Mei, thank you very much.
Thank you.